We all know that say where if you think about something long enough, or you, I guess, put your mind to it, that you hadn't before, and now suddenly you see it everywhere. And most try to explain it away or comprehend it, I guess, based on the process of how the brain works. They try to make sense of it that way, just like they do with memory, for instance. But what, again, most don't do is they don't really try to understand, really try to comprehend. They don't really look for the actual answer of why is it that something happens. They try to make sense of it, and they try to make sense of it in a way that they have been programmed to make sense of it. I'll say that again. They try to make sense of something the way that they have been programmed to make sense of it. So, if they find something that quote unquote sums it up and aligns biologically, aligns with how physiology works, somehow in science it checks out. They stop there. They take that and they feel they've nailed it. This is why. But often they overlook the key truth, and that is, but why? And more so, how? So if we take memory, if we take just like this scene where we, say, think about a word, or suddenly find ourselves thinking about a numerical digit, and oh, lo and behold, you start seeing it everywhere. Now, for those that find that they believe it to mean that it's only natural via how your, brain works and how it processes and what it's capable of doing, the question they seem to dodge, if you will, perhaps even unconsciously, but the question they seem to dodge is, why does that happen? Why is it that when you focus or think about something in a way that sort of summons attention, that you begin to see that particular thing or something about that being or that digit or that word, suddenly you hear it everywhere, or suddenly you see something everywhere or more frequently. That's what they don't ask. That why? And all the while, how? So a brain could be capable of doing something, sure. But why is it capable of doing that? You see? And again, how is it capable of doing that? So this is where I feel that most settle. They don't really find the answer, and they just settle with what they can somehow easily try to process something and why it occurs the way it does. And even then, there's always a kind of a loophole. But they settle. And this goes with almost anything. Almost. So clearly, and these are not only my thoughts, but it feels very factual. It feels very valid that there's something greater, a kind of force, a reserve even, if you will, where all of this is taking place, where memory takes place, where imagination takes place, where these processes, right, where you're able to suddenly see everything when you put your mind to it, when you align with it. It's not something that's actually happening in your quote unquote real or very believable brain. It's not. Your brain is flesh. It's not something that's happening in there. There's no screen, if you will. There's nerves firing. There's all of that that's been designed to process, to work in such an intricate and organized and advantageous and beneficial way to not only sustain but to help humans adapt, survive, thrive, expand in intellect, you name it. But where is that all happening? What's the drive? What's the space that it's happening in? Why is it happening? how is it happening? And what for is it happening? And I want you all to ask these very questions, to apply these very questions to most, if not all, of the things that you find yourself experiencing in this human experience. So there's a greater force, there's a greater space, like I say, the reserve, where all of this is brewing in. And that space can only be awareness. A powerful field of endless unfoldings, creativity, purpose, curiosity. Phenomena, a power that cannot be grasped, cannot be understood to the T. Power that is capable of so much more than the human perceptions are trained, if you will, to not see. Because when you think, when you absorb all these preconceived notions and ideations and concepts and ways of thought, you start limiting, perimetering yourself. And when you do that, anything outside of that perimeter, anything outside of that, you will find, or you will call it, absurd. But that makes no sense. But again, how can all of this be without awareness? Where is it that it's sourcing from? Because it's got to be sourcing from somewhere. And this is where most settle, where they don't really ask the questions they should be asking. So if you don't ask the questions that you should be asking, you're not going to receive the answers you should be receiving. Or in some, even almost near answers.